Here are 3 of my biggest application tips. Number 1 is really simple, but it's honestly one of the biggest mistakes I see people make during the process. Be yourself. Simple, right? But as you're interacting with other people and you hear about their different paths and different career goals, it might be tempting to do what everyone else is doing. But it's most important to know yourself and be yourself and have that come through during your application. It makes it much easier to write your essays and prepare for your interviews, but admissions officers are also looking for people who are passionate about what they're pursuing, and that passion shows up when you're being yourself. Number 2 is get to know your school. My favorite way of getting to know the school that I ended up at, Columbia, was through relationships that I built with people. That was students, alum, and admissions officers. Now, you may be thinking, I'm overseas, so it might be very difficult for you to get to know people. Make sure you reach out via email and set up phone calls to really get to know the school personally. Ask the right questions. Ask about their journey to whatever school you're interested in. Ask about what the culture is like at that school, because you really want to understand if it's a good fit for you, and they want to get to know you better to see if you're a good fit for their community. So it's really important to get that FaceTime with all of these different people I mentioned. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know. Many students, after they interact with prospective students, also give feedback to admissions officers. So again, it's really important for you to be yourself during that process so that they can share good feedback with admissions officers. My last application tip is really important. Get reviewers for your application. I like to say at least 2 different people reviewing your application before you hit submit. Now, the first person should know you really well. Here's why that's important. Remember, tip number 1 was be yourself. That person that knows you really well can read your application and tap you on the shoulder and say, that doesn't sound like you, or this application sounds exactly like you. That second person should not know you, so ask a friend of a friend to read your application, because without them knowing you, they are not necessarily biased to give you the most positive feedback. They can be really, really honest. And they might not also be familiar with your industry or whatever happened during your experience before applying to school. So they'll be able to read it without having that knowledge, because admissions officers aren't going to necessarily have that knowledge either. So it's a good opportunity for someone to read and make sure that your application is easy to understand. So be yourself, get time getting to know the school, and number 3, get reviewers on your application.